They are famous for making this toy run, a cruise made to bring toys to the needy children. So, I'm now in the process of analyzing the data but I can tell you about the preliminary findings in the fieldwork. Both biker and lowrider clubs carry a stigma that comes from several decades back, and have also several years trying to clean that image, like with the Toy Run event. So they currently have a greater acceptance in the Tijuana community, although the bad image still carries a lot of weight in the way people perceive them. Number 2. As motorcycle and car clubs, they have a very strong symbolic expressive form related among all to their machines and the clothes they wear to show off among them. Number 3. It is precisely these machines and their complex symbolic expressive that can be perceived as a way of urban space appropriation by mobile artifacts that is bursting into public space in an uncommon manner. And number 4. Both are social expressions that very strongly vindicate masculinity. This is very important because women, they don't have participation in this club. They stayed outside when the meeting start Friday night. They are like they're like identity mirrors. You know, you accept me as a biker, and you are only my mirror to vindicate my masculinity. So it is constantly notorious that this part of their identity is constantly at play and is always being defended. Like when I came with them, they say to me, "Go out. We don't want to talk with you." They were like being machos, you know, with me. So finally, both are social phenomena committed to social action with the Tijuana community, associated with the redemption of the stigma they carry. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Juan, I have a question for you. Yeah. My project is fascinating. But,
can you do this slow?
Yeah, sure. Your project is fascinating, first of all. But, and I can also do the question in Spanish. Okay. I guess I'll do it in English. But there is part of the point of being involved in a lowrider club or in a biking club is to occupy space and to be visible on the street. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the reaction of local authorities to these clubs, because even though they are trying to re-vindicate themselves, as you mentioned, they still do constitute a threat, I'm sure, in many people's eyes. So how do local authorities navigate these organizations?
Well, actually, the local police chief, it's a biker. Yeah, he belongs to another bike, not this one, another biker club. So they say to me that actually they don't have problems with that. Actually, it was like very surprising to me that they drink beer in the street. They don't have problems with it because they say to me, no, the police chief is biker. He doesn't say anything. But they told me that they have problems with occupying the streets because they want to show in the street, but they have this problem back in 1999, maybe, I don't know when it was, when the bikers were occupying the Revolucion, it's like the central street in Tijuana, and they were drunks and they were taken to the jail. So they have problems with local authorities. But the second thing that I wanted to say about that, especially with lowriders, they are meticulous, like with authorities about asking permission to occupy the street. They weekly go to the municipality and they weekly ask a permission, and the municipality, okay, you can occupy 14th Street from this hour to that hour. So they are like careful with that now, because they have this experience of.
No, I was, well, I like your paper very much, and I was like thinking about, you were talking about, well, the text were talking about the marvelous, and you were talking about exoticism as well. So I was thinking, like, there's this book by Gabriel Weiss, Tinta del Exotismo, where he claims that the construction or representation of exotism is intertwined with writing, and that writing is a way of creating exotism as it is. And another book, I don't remember the name of the author, it's Imperialized. It was the wife of
Mary.
Right, thank you. And yes, she says that the other is a pretext to describe oneself, to write about oneself, not only about the fears but also the desires, and that's where your thesis is working. So my question is, where do texts take you? Do they take you toward a discussion on exotism or on the marvelous? Because there's like another literature about the marvelous. Ana Maria Morales in UNAM, she's talking about the marvelous in the Middle Ages and in Mexican short stories and stuff. So, or is it like coming from exotism to the marvelous?
Well, I'm really still kind of just digging into this, but I think I have to say that what I've done before is marvelous. It doesn't come to the marvelous. And I think I'm drawn to it more because it has this sort of, it's a more creative way of like fantasizing, right? You're creating a fantasy. But I think that I need to pay attention to the violence, implicity, this fantasy, the creation of it. Well, can you repeat that? That's the first one.
About the whether your research will be focusing on exotism and the way exotism is constructed, or whether you will be analyzing how the writers take the marvelous as a way of shaping up the words they're visiting.
Yeah, right. And I guess also I think you can't separate the key
Right.
points of both of them.
I mean, as you were talking about it, I kept thinking about actually I had I kept seeing you as trapped in magic realism and all the problems that magic realism had.
Right.
So at the end, when you were releasing the birds and so on, that reminded me of Isabel Allende and the House of the Spirits, when she releases the birds and then forgets about all the women who were in the prison camp with her being tortured, and she's out thanks to her grandfather who has connection with the dictatorship.
Right.
So can you talk about, or can you think of moving your research into, I guess, a sense of wonder that is not exoticized, like into, I'm asking you to get out of marvelous and get into reality, but I don't know how to do that.
Right. Well, I mean, that is kind of that point that I'm caught at, where it's like you have this right, amazing visual of the birds scattering everywhere, but then you're left with like the absence of this body still, right? Or like the presence of the absence of a body, and it's easy not to talk about it because it's invisible or not visible, or it's less visible than this beautiful, fantastical image of what I'm kind of trying to figure out is also this idea of like how to talk about being in the body and like dealing with the body and talking about the root like of eroticism as like localized in the body, a gendered body. And not being trapped there also, or like either, right? Like you can get trapped like in the birds flying all around, or you can get trapped in the body, right?
You want to go beyond narcissism and egocentrism?
How's yeah. Well, no. How is that? So, like saying that the body's narcissistic.
No, but if you are, that's where you are focused.
Right. But I think at the same time, like you can't dismiss that. Literally, you can't just say that it's just egocentric, right? Because it's on the body where, like, I mean, like that's where trauma is, right? That's in the body.
I don't know how you will get out of that.
Speaking of gendered bodies, Alberto and Juan Antonio, both your papers deal with predominantly male groups, right? All male groups. And Juan Antonio mentioned that this fosters kind of a sense of machismo or something. Alberto, is there anything in your research, anything that you might be thinking about in terms of the influence of having an all-male, what I assume to be an all-male group, all-male culture of these Chinese migrants, if the gender has anything to do with it? You mentioned a little bit about one person who was sort of castigated, because of a homosocial situation. I'm just wondering if you found anything or if you have any thoughts about this all male group.
The interesting thing is that the majority of the migrants were male, right? So one of the ways I'm trying to deal with it in the Chinese example is, for example, through the image and the construction of community and family. So looking at family as a potential category of analysis rather than just a male-female binary. So the inference to the parents, right, allows us to begin to go down that road. I'm comparing the Chinese, by the way, to other groups in a bigger project, Afro-West Indians included. And in those cases, I'm dealing with a lot of maroon women, which offers an interesting contrast to what I'm seeing in the Chinese communities beyond the lens of family, for example. And there's a whole other sets of issues. They don't necessarily end up incarcerated, but they're in and out of prisons. Their citizenship is rescinded, or aspirations for citizenship often rescinded. Yet they're very empowered and emboldened in a lot of the things they do, moving from island to island, helping what I think are lovers escape from slavery, for example, from one island moving into the next, getting caught, assuming multiple identities in some of the paper trail.